Hi, everybody. My name is John Semankiewicz. I'm with Beer Law Center. I've got just a couple of seconds today to tell you a little bit about us. We're one of the sponsors and speakers here at the virtual conference. We're a small law firm based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we have devoted our practice to alcohol producers and sellers, breweries, wineries, meaderies, cideries, kombucha, you name it, we've worked on it before. If you have a question, give us a call. We don't charge for initial consult, and if we don't have the answer, we'll help you find somebody who does. You can reach us at 919-335-5291. It's a telephone number. If you don't like that, just drop me an email at john@beerlawcenter.com, john@beerlawcenter.com, or find us on social media at Beer Law Center. We'd love to hear from you and we'll help you grow your business. Have a great day.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for that wonderful advertisement from Beer Law Center, and thank you Beer Law Center for sponsoring our great event here. For those who haven't met me, my name is Matthew. I'm the COO of Brew Ninja. We're a brewery management software. And welcome to the last and hopefully not least presentation of the day. It's 5 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock Pacific here over where I am from, but hopefully everyone's been having a great couple of days with the virtual conference. Thanks again, Andrew and the Craft Beer Professionals for hosting this. So as a final talk today, my job is to make things as fast as possible so that you guys can, really soak in all of this information. Hopefully, you guys will have all of this information and YouTube videos available after our talk here. But today we're gonna focus, and sorry, for those who haven't seen my previous talks, I've been really talking more about metrics, strategies through operational excellence, if you will. But today I kind of want to dive a little bit more into the finance side of things, really talk about cash flows, something that I haven't brought up before. And honestly, it's something that everybody thinks about, right? Every brewer here, owner, manager, constantly thinks about cash flow, how much money is coming into the brewery, how much do I have to spend, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really what I'm going to dive in today. And let's face it, you guys most of the time are focused on the brewery. Things are going great, but at the end of the day, I always want to bring back the topic of finance, right? Hey, what do we have to think about when my door's shut and I can have time to look through my brewery, my company, my books, and cash flow is one of the biggest things, biggest topics that we're going to hit. So kind of a brief explanation of what is cash flow. And of course, my focus here is cash flow that's more relative to your brewery operations, right? So in my slide over here, obviously it's cash coming in, right? Most of the time it's from your tap room, your sales through your wholesaler, your distro, your restaurants and liquor stores. And usually they'll come in the format of accounts receivables or cash, credit cards, ACH, checks. These are all the delivery methods of cash and money that comes into the brewery. Of course, it comes into the brewery and, well, we have to spend that money as well. So that goes out in the form of your payables on your books, vendor invoices, credit cards, ACH, again, all of the delivery methods that you usually do going out. I left cash outside of this cash outflow, mostly because I don't think most people use cash when dealing with, BSG or your vendor invoices. So I just mostly left that out. But if you do, and for whatever reason, of course, that's always part of it. Again, my focus is not so much on the wage or your overhead, right? I'm really more thinking about what goes on as a day-to-day of the brewery, what you need to buy, what you need to sell, and the cash flow of those materials. But for the most part, most breweries think of cash flow as like how much is coming in and how much is going out. But I really want us to focus on one thing, and you saw the slide just now, velocity, right? How fast is the money coming in? How soon can it be available for me to use in my bank accounts? How slow can I pay my vendors, right? So all of these things, your goal really is to say, I want my money coming in sooner rather than later, and I want to pay my vendors in a timely manner, but later rather is better, right? So I want to keep that money in the brewery for as long as possible. So let's dissect that a little bit, right? So let's focus on cash coming in. Well, you know what? Again, you have your tap room, you have your wholesale invoices, and I'm going to dive in a little bit here of the usual ways that people receive money. Well, through your distro, through your wholesalers, they maybe pay credit card. Great, that comes in the same day. We'll go through the pros and cons a bit in some later slides, but just kind of laying out kind of the timeline that usually we see. Credit cards are fast, have some fees for processing, but they're pretty much, you're going to get that at the end of the night through your payment processors. ACH, very similar, but it does take 1 to 3 business days for your banks to process. Same thing with check. But thinking about check is the same as thinking about cash here, is that there's still that, kind of manual processing time, not just about banks, right? When you receive the checks from your vendor or from your customers, it's going to take you at least a day to a couple days before you actually collect enough. You go to the bank, you deposit it, then starts that 2 to 3 business day cycle before that money is available to you. So those are also some things to think about when we're kind of dissecting what our brewery cash flow looks like and the entire process, and really to think about it in a way of how can I make it better, right? Some of the strategies, ways, technologies that we can implement. Same thing with taproom. Hey, credit card is great. You have your POS systems, you have your, Moneris, Square, Arrive. They'll process that for you very quickly. Again, there's some fees involved, but it does happen faster. And of course, cash. Cash is great, but again, deposit times is one thing to think about, but also you still need a lump sum of petty cash left in the brewery. So in a cash flow perspective, that is kind of dead, right? So you constantly need $5,000 cash at the brewery in case of anything happening. Great, fine. That's, a couple of $1,000s that really isn't used overall or isn't available, let's put it that way. So how can we have all of these methods of receiving money, but, how do we receive it, generally speaking, right? Great, we sell beer to our customers. Usually we'll take the payment from, credit card payments over the phone, right? We'll take some checks upon delivery. We'll talk about using different tools. I'll also talk about using different third parties that we can, again, take the money from our customers. And again, we'll kind of walk through the pros and cons of each method. Oftentimes it's already been and I think to many of us, you already do all of them or some of these tactics already, but I just kind of want us to take time today to kind of review that to see if there's any gaps, any ways that we can actually work on it and implement faster processes. So the easiest way, of course, is, hey, we're going to take credit card over the phone, right? Is faster than checks. Your customer is going to more or less like it. They get a little bit of, some credit cards do give off the 1 or 2% discounts or air miles, things like that, right? For you, of course, there is a bit of a fee involved, right? Usually what we see happen at a brewery is we call the customer, we write down the credit card number, we walk over to our POS system or payment processing system, and then we punch that in. Problem is it does pick up on a higher rate, right? Generally, card not present is a bit more money than a card present transaction. there is definitely more room for error. Some of the cons of this, it's, your your people will write it down, you walk over, maybe the number's wrong. Okay, now we got to walk back, call the customer again, make sure the credit cards are correct. The worst case scenario really is when the credit card is right, but well, let's say, oh, it didn't go through, insufficient funds. What do you do then? Okay, well, you got to wait for the customer to pay it off or wait a couple of days. Now, at that point, your accountant or the person managing your payable, your receivables is going to have way more work than what's necessary. And oftentimes, if you're not the lucky few that has an in-house accountant or maybe your general manager doing all of this work, then you're also telling your accounting firm to, hey, go and help me pick up on this AR. That's more time, that's more money out of your pocket, unfortunately. One other aspect of this taking credit card payment over the phone really is also a matter of trying again, right? Sometimes you do have customers that will say, hey, my payment, my credit card rolls over to the next month tomorrow. Can you process this later? Again, that's more human inefficiencies overall. All right, well, what if I didn't just manually punch it in? Many of us will be using some kind of accounting system, Xero, QuickBooks, some to, for example, a lot of them have some kind of payment processing add-on to the system already. Great. Of course, pros, faster payment processing time. You can set that up. Your accountant can also, have that information available to them. Press a button. If you're using QuickBooks, for example, their payment processing also has the same idea, right? It sends an email out to your customer, has a link that says, hey, pay with QuickBooks here. They click a button. But again, you might need more accountant interaction, unfortunately, right? Some people may not have their sales rep going into their QuickBooks all the time. So it depends on your situation whether, utilizing your accounting platform to process the payment is really the best way. You may not be able to set up auto pay. So don't quote me. I think in some of the accounting platforms, their payment processing doesn't include maybe saving the credit card on file or setting up auto payment so that it just, processes the payment right away. And again, you may need multiple levels of access. Hey, someone who may be doing your sales orders or invoices may not have access to QuickBooks, which is more of the payment side of things. So that's something to consider as we're kind of looking through the lens of cash flows. Finally, there are a number of third-party softwares that you could utilize. There are some pros to them. Sometimes they are able to process the credit card as a card present, so it won't charge you the regular not present processing fees. So you might be able to save a little bit of money on that. They have all the data security to hold that information, right? One of the things that not many people talk about is kind of that liability when you write down a credit card number on a piece of paper at the brewery that you either save on file or you punch it into QuickBooks, and now we have multiple people looking into it. Unfortunately, there is some liability that may be there. A lot of third-party softwares already have a lot of that security built in. You, the vendor, technically won't even see the credit card. You just know that, hey, the POS or the processing square, whatever you're using to process your payments, they kept the credit card information already. We can now process that immediately as everything was kind of okayed by the customer initially. So great way to automate that process, right? Hey, have payment reminders. You can also do repeating processes as well. Some of the cons, of course, nothing is free, so it might be additional setup required, additional manpower required just to set that up overall. Now, that's all of the methods of cash coming in, right? Coming into the brewery. Now, let's also take a step back and look at the cash out, right? We have the money now. What do we need to pay? Well, we need to pay our vendors through credit cards, ACH, etc. And for the most part, it's just, I'm going to focus purely on vendor invoices. So things like your BSG, your canning bills, anything that's more related, directly related to the brewery, rather than, and of course, anything we discussed today does apply to your marketing expenses as well, or, other expenses that you may be paying out. But usually those expenses have a bit more consistency to it, right? Your rent is going to be the same amount every month, paid on the same day every month. So in terms of a cash flow, it's something you can estimate and you can forecast a little bit easier. When we're looking at ingredient, bills or bills to BSG, etc., a lot of them might have, you may not exactly know how much you need to pay every month or months coming forward. So this is something we want to say, hey, if we can hone in on this process, then we can actually have a better forecast of how much money I need to pay off my vendors, etc. So vendor bill processing. For the most part, it's still fairly manual, right? You receive an invoice from BSG, you send that over to your accountant. Then they know, okay, well, maybe you're lucky, you get a net 30. Great. They wait until due date, then they process a bill payment over to BSG through ACH, through credit card, whatever system that you're using. Again, it does require the accountant's attention, right? You do also have a bit of a risk of late payment, right? If your accountant's gone for that week, what happens? If you're thinking, hey, I'm gonna delay my vendor payments as late as possible, that's fine, but there is a bit of a credit risk there as well. And after a while, I'm not telling you to do so. Hey, if you get 30 days, why not, right? But my job and my goal today is really to discuss this last point. How can we make things so that we take less of your employees' time, right? Or less of your time dealing with payables and receivables. So let's take a look at that. We talked a lot about payment processing. Well, how will automating any of that help, right? For example, some automation, honestly is already available to you. You have QuickBooks, you have some of that already available. You have a POS system that might also do payment invoicing. A lot of that is there. But if I automate that, what does that do? Okay, well, it could reduce some of the processing fees, right? We're saying the difference between a card present transaction versus a card not present, depending on your payment provider, card not present and automated card transactions might be different as well. So that's something we will have to look at that on a case by case basis. It will definitely save time, right? And it will definitely save a bit of that accountant's fees. Like if you hire an accounting firm or you have a third party accountant help you out, once a week, once every other week, how can we make sure her job is more focused on being the accountant rather than spending time to be just the AR clerk or AP clerk? Because that's what they would do, right? Honestly, and more time with your accountant means more money for them. So how can we make it so that we save time for everybody? Streamline your operation. So again, there are ways for us to automate that entire process flow, right? From the moment we create an invoice to automation that can help you send the invoice and payment portal out to receiving the monies coming in. Same thing on the vendor payment side. Hey, I create a bill, it goes into QuickBooks. How can I automate that process so that I know, hey, it's going to get paid. I don't have to have that much interaction or that much guidance overall. Now, payment integration does come in several different formats. And I've kind of outlined here a few um, options, things that I've looked up, um, and integrating payments into your other tools in general is it's kind of the next step if you haven't done that already, right? Many of you will already know, hey, we use QuickBooks or we use Xero. The accounting system, yes, it can process the invoicing, it can do payments, you can connect your bank accounts into it so that, hey, the moment your payment provider sends it to your bank account, it comes into QuickBooks. There's even some automation rules that you can set up so that it can like attach to the right account. Uh, that's great. But what about kind of everything else here? Well, Square is a highly used POS system overall in the United States. Um, and many people actually don't know they do have an invoicing feature. So many people use them strictly as a POS for their tap room, but they do have an invoicing feature that allows you to do exactly just that. Hey, we create an invoice, automatically sends it out to your clients, sorry, your restaurant customers, has a link for them to click so that they can make the payments online. They can store the credit card information. They have all of that kind of locked down. So that's less pressure for you to chase down your customers, right? Because let's face it, not everybody will pay you right off the bat, or not everybody will pay you before delivery either. So a lot of that can automate some of that flow. And also, don't forget, Square will also do some of the reminders as well. On the left here are some add-on services that we found that's kind of working with you with your accounting platform. Products like Notch Financial, Benji Pays, they will be the processing agent, if you will, right? They will be your accounts payable and accounts receivable agent um, for any of the invoices that you may have or for any of the bill payments that you may need to provide. So what happens is, hey, QuickBooks gets an invoice, great. Notch will read that, or Benji Pays will read that and say, okay, well, this is not due until next month. Okay, we can pay for that next month or on a particular date. They have your payment processing information, so they can process that pretty automatically. Or you sent out an invoice for your restaurant customer, and your restaurant customer, punches the credit card number in, but well, maybe the credit card didn't go through. Normally, your accountant or your manager would have to go back and call your customer again and say, okay, well, can I process it now? Or wait a couple of days and process it. A lot of these financial products, what they will do is they would provide that service, already. So they'll keep trying until, up to a certain number of times, so that you don't have to worry about trying again. Usually these things will take a couple of days. Maybe the customer doesn't have enough funds in the credit card, things like that. They also do connect to your ACH account as well. So if your customers need to pay through ACH or other means, these financial products will be able to suffice as well. And further to the left, I've kind of left fintech further out since it's more of a standalone. Some of you may already know what fintech is, but they're more of a financial product that allows your customers to pay directly into their account, into the fintech kind of ecosystem, and then they'll try to funnel the money to you, and kind of vice versa, right? So it really is driven from the customer side. If you're a restaurant customer or your liquor store customer has fintech, then it kind of forces you, hey, I'll receive the money this way. But there are some other products similar that is more like a PayPal type, right? The money goes into PayPal or into fintech. they process the differences for all the different vendors and all the different customers, then finally give you the lump sum. But it's not just about getting paid on time, right? There are other features from all of these softwares that I've just mentioned, or all of these integrations, that we have to consider, right? Hey, if I want to automate things, what am I looking at? Okay, well, what are the processing fees looking like? I know for most of the processors, ACH is a little cheaper, but at the same time, if you're going to pay, you might as well also pay out with credit card, right? That can give you a little bit of percentage back, give you some points. And also don't forget the credit card is a built-in net 30. So if you have invoices that are due immediately, you pay with a credit card. Technically, you don't have to pay that for another 25, 30 days, right? So it can also, by offering quicker integrations, you might be able to offer some more favorable payment terms, right? Hey, use the credit card or use the ACH with our payment provider. You get the money faster, for one, and more secure. And at the same time, maybe your customer will be like, okay, well, they get some points as well. Many of the systems may have their own invoicing capabilities. If you're not using QuickBooks or you're not using Xero, obviously there are some products out there that can customize the invoice to fit what you need from your state, right? Some states have different requirements on the invoices that may go out. Real-time updates and notifications. The notifications is really the kicker, right? When you're looking at third-party or additional software to help you streamline that payment flow, the ability to update you that, hey, payments come in, great, or notify the customer or the payee side, hey, you got to keep, it takes a lot of hours and man hours away from your staff to try to call everybody and be like, hey, where's my money, right? So a lot of that can be automated, and most of it do come with that type of feature. One thing I really want to talk about is this dunning feature. So dunning is the method of just retrying, right? If I'm a restaurant customer and I gave you my credit card, it didn't work today, maybe insufficient funds, whatever. A lot of these systems will just try within a set period of time. So now it's day one, great, it didn't work. We're going to try 2 days later. Fine, didn't work again. We're going to keep trying, and they're going to send notifications to your customer for you. Again, all of that is much more automated. You don't have to worry about it as much. When do you have to start worrying is, okay, well, it's been a week, we've tried 4 times. Now you really have to talk to the customer. And that's okay, right? That's one interaction out of the 5, 6 that you would have had to do this time. And of course, I have to talk about metrics and reports, right? When looking at ways to really improve on your cash flow situation, or just reporting on it, some of the things where we really suggest looking for is, hey, profitability reports, but also on AR and AP turnover. So what is a turnover? That means we're really looking at how much time does each account take to get paid or to be paid, right? So AR turnover is probably the one thing that most people really focus on is, hey, once I send you an invoice, how long does it normally take for my customers to give me the money? If that's starting to look like a longer period than what you would like, then you got to start doing some methods to shorten that time period. Delinquent accounts. Hey, some people just don't pay. And so some of these products are able to give you quicker insight as to which ones haven't been paid, how long, how many times have tried. That's the thing too, is a lot of these products, the payment products, can actually tell you what the reason for that failure. It could be insufficient funds. It could be the bank didn't allow the process to go through. We as Brew Ninja, we get that a lot, so we do deal with that a lot ourselves. But it does happen. And of course, on the vendor payment side, right? Yes, we have to pay the vendors, we have to pay them on a timely manner. But one thing that most people don't think too much about is, well, what are my lead times, right? If I need to order, if I can know from my, ERP inventory systems that I need X amount of hops and I purchase them through BSG, what's my lead time there? How much money how much longer will the invoice come in? After that, how much time do I have to pay for it? And then if I use my credit card, that's another 20 days, right? So once you have these systems in place, you can start looking at, well, I need this much grain, I'm going to buy them, and I know I have to pay for all of that in about 2 months' time. And I can kind of map that out a bit. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about cash flow, it's about creating a system that alleviates your human the human time that it needs to process all of this stuff, right? I'm more thinking, so what can we do to streamline those operational practices, right? So for the most part, everybody kind of have one, but if you don't, an ERP system is still something, or inventory system, or CRM, right? Those are still things that we always suggest. Could be us, could be Ecos, could be um, whoever else, and because you would have that information available. Because once you have that information, then you can start getting purchasing planning. You can start doing expense planning. It can streamline the ability for you to do very little work and then have the information go from invoice to payment to paid cash on hand right away. So there are core systems that kind of needs to be in play, but looking through in the lens of cash flow, we're really trying to say, what can we do here to make life a little bit easier? And of course, once you have those kind of systems, invoicing, accounting, integrating that payment processing as part of the plan, is kind of that next step, right? You, again, really manage your customers' interaction, right? Like that's the main thing. As your restaurant customers or your distributors, they're going to receive the invoice from you. They're going to know that, okay, well, it was easy. I just have to click a button, put in a credit card, or put in my ACH information. I don't have to deal with them anymore. And then it's just going to get paid. And everything's more automated, right? And this allows your staff member to be more focused about the actual interaction, the service with those customers, right? So that they come in when there are problems at hand or the invoice is wrong, things like that. Okay, so said a lot here, but kind of a brief recap is, hey, how can we focus on velocity, right? The acceleration of cash flow, how fast it comes in, how kind of slow it can go out, right? And what do we use? How can we use kind of more operational workflows to have that all work out? Not just about technology, but also about saying, hey, who does what job, right? Who, as part of this process, has to be involved? Is it the accountant? Is it the general manager? Is it the salespeople only? Things like that. With, of course, more technology and more systems in play, you get a better insight into your financial health, and you can even offer some flexible payment options. And as just a way of saying, hey, you can use credit card, you can use ACH, and it's not going to break your bank on the fees. Time for a brief plug here. And so what is Brew Ninja got to do with all of this? So we do have an integration with QuickBooks and Square, and that's kind of the whole system that I've been talking about, right? It's saying having Brew Ninja or any ERP system saying, hey, we have the ERP that's connected to my payment processor, so all of my invoices can seamlessly go get paid. Then we send everything over to QuickBooks. This has been a newer solution of ours that we just kind of came up with, and we now have wholesale invoicing and payment processing through Square through our own invoicing system. So, through Square's invoicing system that is triggered by Brew Ninja. So the average Brew Ninja user wouldn't normally have to touch Square. They put everything in Brew Ninja, sends the invoice out, clicks a button, Square sends payment notification, done all of that work. And then after all of that's done, everything sends over to QuickBooks, just like normal. And the hope is that we will get you paid faster, right? And the hope is that by looking through your entire workflow of your cash flow system, that you can get paid a little faster. You can pay out a little slower or time it a little bit better as well. Now, many people might think, okay, well, implementing new systems might be a little bit daunting, but again, I think once the work is done, you've done the research, hopefully it's easier. And it's not just about ERP systems, but your payment processors. If you're switching accounting platforms, you know what? The work to integrate them isn't that hard. It does take a little bit more time, but hey, it's not as hard as most people think. I'm going to just skip through this. Again, we've been at the show a few times. We're going to be at Vegas coming up for the 2024 CBP, hopefully. CBC. So we hopefully will be able to see everybody. But yeah, it's been a great minute here. Hopefully what I've provided is some value in terms of ways to look at your cash flow process, right? And to see and hopefully encourage some ideas about what you can do, what systems to maybe take a look at that can make payments a lot faster, a lot easier. Thanks, everybody. We'll take a minute here, see if there's any comments. And if not, that's it. That's it for me. That's it for CBP. Hopefully everyone has had a wonderful time and look forward to seeing you guys at the next in-person meetup.